Pucks with Haggs is brought to you by PrizePicks and the Gametime app.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 160th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. So welcome in. Thank you very much for listening. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get yourself a premium membership. You get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also write columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal, and I do a Q&A each week for the Boston Sports Journal as well. So check out bostonsportsjournal.com and get a subscription there to get my Bruins writing on that site to you as well. We got a mailbag episode today, so I'm actually going to answer some of those questions from the Q&A as well as questions I get on Twitter, on Facebook, from fans out there. So we'll answer some Bruins questions and get to the bottom of some things. We'll also talk about the 2-0 win over the Ottawa Senators on Thursday night, which was a big one for the Bruins. So let's thank our sponsors real quick, though, before we get into it. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's also thank our friends at Gametime. Anytime you need any kind of tickets, sports, comedy, theater, what have you, use the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, download the app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. That's right. All right. 2-0 win for the Bruins over the Ottawa Senators on Thursday night. They move back into one of the three, the third playoff spot in the Atlantic Division, at least temporarily. It's going to be a dogfight the rest of the year. They've put themselves, the Bruins have, in a very difficult spot based on some of the things that have happened with them this month. That 6-game losing streak, blowing a game to Ottawa earlier this week. Or last weekend, I should say, doing some things that they've done have made it a high degree of difficulty. They've given themselves really no margin for error. And as David Pastrnak said after the game on Thursday night, they're basically fighting for their lives for the rest of the year, and they've kind of put themselves in that spot. That could end up being a good thing come playoff time. I don't have high hopes because of the flaws that I've seen on this team and because of some of the bad losses, some of the just non-competitive games I've seen, like the loss they had to New Jersey prior to that 2-0 win over the Ottawa Senators, where they basically just really didn't show up. They had an okay first period, and then after that, it was just ugly hockey, just not even competitive. Gave up 3 power play goals. I think that's the 3rd time they've done that this year. So the New Jersey game was ugly. The Ottawa game, I thought, was one of their best in the entire season, certainly one of the best since Joe Sacco has taken over. Really ultra competitive top to bottom. Everybody brought everything that they had. It was a playoff level effort. They were competing for pucks. They were moving the puck fast, good passing. They did have a lot of scoring chances. They didn't get frustrated when they didn't cash in on any of those scoring chances in the first period when they were all around it. And frustration definitely could have set in, and it did not. And they ended up getting a goal from Morgan Geekie in the second period. His 5th in the month of January, his 13th this season. He's on pace to get over 20 for the first time in his career. And really, after a very slow first 2 months where he had 2 goals, I think, in the first 20 games in October and November, Geekie has come on, and he's been very good. And he's really become he and Pavel Zacha and David Pastrnak have become the Bruins' best line, their most dangerous line, their most productive line, their best line in all situations. Not only did Morgan Geekie score the goal, but he flattened Thomas Chabot and drew a cross-checking penalty with a great open ice, clean, punishing hit in a game that was physical and nasty and playoff style. So Morgan Geekie is playing at a very high level right now. He's playing very good hockey, and he was, I think, one of the best, if not the best players on the ice for the Bruins in that game. So that was good. And there was, a lot of good things. The Bruins had to hang on and kill penalties in the third period. Their penalty kill did really good. Senators had 30 seconds of 5-on-3 time. They had extended power play time. Brandon Carlo had over 40 minutes shorthanded. So he was really doing the job on the penalty kill and played a really good game. He had a bunch of giveaways, but that's okay. As long as he's doing the job on the PK and in the defensive zone, I think you're going to live with, mistakes with the puck or anything else. And I thought he was very good. And, really top to bottom, there wasn't much to complain about. And Matt Poitras, I thought, again, was very good. He was not great in New Jersey in the loss, but he was good and dialed in and looked good again with Coyle and Marchand centering them in this game against Ottawa, which was, like I said, was a playoff level game. I haven't even mentioned it yet. Korpisalo, I think it was 29 saves, shutout, because Jeremy Swayman was banged up, and that was he was pulled in the third from the beginning prior to the start of the third period against New Jersey. He was pulled, and the thought was they were going to pull him to rest him against Ottawa and put him back in against Ottawa, but lo and behold, they pulled him because something was wrong with him physically. And he was not even the backup. It was Michael DiPietro backing up Joonas Korpisalo. Jeremy Swayman was not dressed in that Thursday night win over the Senators. So another key Bruins player has now been injured and is a little dinged up. So that, there's a lot going on here. There's no question about it. There's plenty of adversity. This Bruins team, if they get to the playoffs, I think the one positive you can say about them, their situation, the season that they're having, is that they're going to be battle hardened and battle tested by the time they get to the postseason in a way that they have not in recent vintage years been, because they've just been able to pull away from other teams and had a big cushion and didn't really have to fight for their lives. So, there may be some advantage to that. There may be some good that can come of that. And it may be a little bit of an optimistic view looking at it that way, but I think it's undeniable that they will be, they're going to be basically in the playoffs the whole second half of this year fighting to get in. And if they get into the postseason, they're going to be like in playoff form and playoff level, like right from the jump. And maybe that helps them get a quick start in a series. Like, we'll see if they get there. I'm still not optimistic that they're going to make the playoffs based on what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, based on another just like gross loss against the New Jersey Devils. Just there's no way to put it. Just not a lot to write home about as far as positives. Felt like they didn't even bring it competitively and kind of folded the tent in the second period once things started going wrong. And we've seen that happen a few times with this particular Bruins team, that like when things start to go against them, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of in-game resistance while that's going on, especially if it's on the road and it's against a pretty good team. It seems like that's, when they fold. And that, on the other side of the token, is not a great sign for the playoffs when they consistently do that. And it just like sort of game over once things start going against them, against a good team on the road. Cause that tells you right now, like when that happens in the playoffs, which it will happen in the playoffs, it'll probably happen every single game on the road in the playoffs, that's not a good sign as to how they're going to react. Maybe eventually they learn from that and they build up some resistance to when that adversity hits, but I haven't seen it. Not against good teams. They're still very far below 500 against good teams. And I did the numbers yesterday. They've obviously changed slightly after the 2-0 win against Ottawa. But I think their goal differential against teams in the playoff structure this year was like -31, which just to me says not a good team against good teams, a team that's going to be aced pretty quickly in the postseason. If they get a draw against one of the best teams in the East, it's not going to be a long stay for them. It just feels like that way based on the way the Bruins have performed. And I don't feel like I'm going on a limb saying that. But, just when you write them off, just when you knock them off as like they should retool, they should trade away players, they should break things up, they have a win like that 2-0 win over the Ottawa Senators where, there were some things to like. And certainly they played hard and showed they could beat a team that looks like they might get to the playoffs by playing hard, or at least, we're able to knock down somebody that they're competing with for the playoffs. So they showed something. I have to give them that, and I have to give them credit for that. Even if it came after a couple of disastrous games before that. So they continue to sort of keep you hanging on a little bit. And at least they played well on home ice. At least you're giving the fans something that they're paying all their hard-earned money to go watch. If you're going to be bad on the road, be good at home, give your fans something to see and watch and cheer for, and feel like they, got their value for the hard-earned money that they're putting into the tickets. So that is a good sort of change of what it's been the last few years for the Bruins too, where I think they struggled on home ice. And I think this year they've been a lot better. And that is something to like, and to, also, give them some compliments on and give them credit for. So we'll see what happens. They got a high-powered Colorado Avalanche team coming in this weekend. That could be interesting. But they got the game they had to get. They needed that win to really sort of, keep them in a decent position. I wouldn't say a good position, because Tampa Bay still has 4 games in hand on them. Ottawa still has 2 games in hand on them. And there's a huge bunch of teams vying for those wild card spots and those last playoff spots. So as David Pastrnak, like I said, as he said after the win on Thursday night, they're fighting for their lives. So the Ottawa Senators, and it's going to be like that for the rest of the year. So at least give them credit for a good win. Morgan Geekie, Pavel Zacha, David Pastrnak, just the chemistry is on point, and they've been excellent for, the better part of this entire month. So that's a good development as well. And we'll get to Geekie a little bit more with questions in the mailbag here. So let's answer some fan questions. First one from Dan H. Hi, Joe. Appreciate the coverage, as this team is tough to watch. Who are you moving off this team in order to re-sign Frederic, or are you just going to move him? Trent Frederic. I don't think I'm moving players to sign Trent Frederic. I'm just not. What is he making now? $3 million, something like that. I think, my thought on Trent Frederic is that would probably be the player I would deal at the trade deadline in order to get some future assets back. I think that is the player I would not choose to spend an inordinate amount of money on to keep. And I don't know that the Bruins are going to do that. I think they've made a determination on this player that he's got a certain level of value. Let's see here. Trent Frederic is making $2.3 million this season. And he's at the end of a contract. I believe it's a 2-year contract that he was on. And from everything I gathered from talking to him, he wants security. He wants a long-term deal. He wants to get a contract somewhere where he's going to stay there for a little while, where he doesn't have to worry about year to year where he's going to be. He gets that long-term security that he's really never had with the Bruins. I don't think he's going to get that here. And I think I've said this multiple times. I think he is in the same vein as Jake DeBrusk last year and Torrey Krug a few years ago, where these are players that I think at this point, as they hit free agency, are going to hit a level where you're not going to want to have to pay them what it's the going rate market value wise. They definitely weren't going to pay Jake DeBrusk a long-term big money deal like he got with Vancouver. Same with Torrey Krug. And I think for Frederic, he's probably looking at somewhere in the $5 million a year range in free agency, as a player that, has proven he can score 20 goals, is a tough guy, is a power forward, is somebody that the other teams probably think they can turn into a Tom Wilson type player. Now, I don't think that's Trent Frederic. I don't think he's ever going to be exactly that. I think he has moments of really good effectiveness. He has moments where he's really impactful from a physicality standpoint, from a stand up for his teammates and throwing down standpoint. He can do enough offensively to at least get you to double-digit goals, between 10 and 20 goals, maybe 30 to 40 points. But this year, 48 games, 7 goals, a -11, worst on the team. And I think he's frankly struggled to find his groove, struggled to find a permanent place for him in the lineup. He's kind of been moved around a lot, which tells you the coaches kind of don't know what to do with him or where to put him. He's moved around from wing to center to wing to center. Like it's been a really difficult year for him and for the Bruins to figure out what to do with him. And frankly, I think that Mark Kastelic, while not the same as Trent Frederic, I think he's similar in some ways, and will be the kind of bottom 6 staple that Frederic was probably going to be. And they signed him to a 3-year contract extension. Now he's banged up right now, and I think he's always going to be banged up just because of how physical he plays. But I think Kastelic is like $1.5 million for 3 years, and that is cheaper than Trent Frederic is now. So I think that signing was an indication that that's the guy they're going to keep around. That's one of the guys they're going to keep around instead of Frederic. And I think Morgan Geekie is another guy that kind of similar in some ways to Trent Frederic in job description, where he's probably like a third liner, but has some upside, where he could play top 6 wing, can play center or wing, is big bodied, has the skill to be in that 20 goal, 40 point range. But Geekie's producing. Geekie has shown chemistry with David Pastrnak. Geekie scored his 13th goal of the season in the win over Ottawa, and is on pace for 20 goals and 40 points, both career highs, and is in the last year of his contract, but is still a restricted free agent with arbitration rights after this year. He was making $2 million, I believe, on the contract that he's on right now. So you're talking about a player that is still going to be cheaper than Trent Frederic next year, based on where they are service time wise, and what kind of free agents they're going to be after this season is over. So I think you could make the argument that basically the Bruins have signed Kastelic. They are going to sign Morgan Geekie, and those two players, I think, are basically going to price out Trent Frederic from being able to stay, just based on what they both bring to the table and their price tags. And I think that's business in the NHL. That's just what happens. So even if the Bruins think that they're a playoff team this year, even if they think they're going to buy at the deadline, I still think they may explore trading Trent Frederic, because they just know he's not in their plans beyond this year, and they'd like to recoup some of the asset, recoup on an asset they're going to lose, and potentially recoup the first-round pick that they used to draft him in the first place. It was a late first-rounder that they used, and I remember I was really critical of them at the time because they didn't take Alex DeBrincat, and they took Frederic instead. And Frederic has turned out to be a perfectly good player, and it's been a good pick. Anytime a player, first, second round, whatever, turns into an NHL player that's playing day in and day out and becomes a core part of your team, I think that's a good pick. So Frederic has turned out to be a very good pick, and it kind of like projected to what they thought he was going to be. Now, the problem becomes, and I mentioned this, I think somebody's going to pay him to be like a big, bad power forward in the league, and is going to look at him and look at the penalty minutes, look at the ability to fight, look at the ability to hit, look at the ability to play multiple positions, to put up close to 20 goals, and they're going to say this is like the power forward mythical beast that there's not many of these in the NHL, and they don't grow on trees, and we have to go out and get this guy. And that's fine. I think that he maybe somewhere else, maybe he goes home to St. Louis and he becomes that guy every single night, and he really lives up to the money he's being paid, and he becomes a hometown hero, and he becomes like a great St. Louis Blue. Maybe something like that happens. And that would be awesome, because Trent Frederic's a fantastic kid. I would love to see that for him. And I think part of him, I'm sure, wants to go back home and play. But I just think that I don't think if the Bruins pay him that kind of money, I don't think he's going to live up to that contract. And I think he's going to have a hard time living up to those expectations, meeting them consistently, being that guy all the time. He has not been that guy all the time in Boston. Certainly this year, he has not been that guy as he struggled. And I think he would have a hard time doing that. So I would deal him and try to get a first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick, maybe a pick and a prospect, but get some future assets back from him. As you know, you may not be bringing him back next season. And I think that's, with that particular player, I don't think that's a read on them being a buyer and a seller. I think that's just a player they should sell to get assets back and recoup some assets, even if they're still going for it for the playoffs this year. And given the forwards that they have, I think they can withstand, losing him. I think having guys like Geekie and Kostelec is going to allow them to be okay, even if they dealt him in season, which would still be a tough move because he's a popular teammate. Everybody likes him. Teammates like him, media likes him, everybody likes Trent Frederic, so it would be unpopular as far as that goes. But I think this is where the business of the NHL definitely comes in. All right, speaking of business, let's take a break in the podcast action to talk about PrizePicks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun, and it's super simple. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. PrizePicks is also giving away a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks will only need to throw 1 yard to win. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you win real cash. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Check out the promo tabs to tail any of our Super Sweat Millie winners. Big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Think Jaden Daniels will get more than 250 passing yards this weekend? Will Patrick Mahomes pass for more than 1.5 touchdowns? Cook up hot takes with your friends and we'll win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. PrizePicks also offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's go into the second question here from Cap77. And Cap77, I got to shout him out. He's on the Q&As for the Boston Sports Journal. He sends in a question every single week. And Cap77 has, I think, some of the best questions, some of the best observations. I think he's fantastic, and I think he's on point with a lot of stuff that he says. So I just really enjoy the back and forth with Cap77. So let's read. He's got a 4-part question here. Number 1, I feel as though our season went down the drain on Saturday in Ottawa. Losing a late 2-goal lead in such a crucial matchup is just egregious, and a potential big win in the standings got turned upside down. Was there any doubt they would lose the shootout, their first of the year? Yeah, I'm kind of down on the Bruins, got to be honest with you, after that loss to Ottawa. I felt like that was a gut check game that they had to have, and they blew it. They blew it down the stretch in the third period. They couldn't come up with a win when they really had to, and you had to get a stop at the end. And, with a growing team, with a young team, with a team that's still figuring out who to put out in certain situations and how to win those games, you're going to have some growing pains and you're going to have some stumbles along the way. But I looked at that and I saw the way they lost and the way they couldn't hang on to that third period lead. And in a game they had to have against a team that they're going, hard against for a playoff berth at the end of the year, I just said this was like indicative of what's going to happen at the end. Like, this is what's going to happen at the end of the year when they need a win and they need to get points, and they're going to crumble like this in certain instances where adversity hits and in-game adversity. Like Joe Sacco mentioned after the game on Thursday last night, the win, that they respond well, like from losses in the next game. And that's true. They still have continued to do that. It's a good show of character. It's a good show of competitiveness, all of that stuff. The in-game response is something that has not been good and continues to not be good. And like, frankly, that's a huge problem too. The in-game response needs to be better from the team instead of waiting for the next game to say, all right, we'll get them next time. Like, I don't think if you want to be a playoff team, I think you need to respond in-game to being pushed, to when another team makes a push, when they come at you. And I don't think the Bruins do that well enough, frankly. And I think that game in Ottawa that they lost and where they blew the third period lead was an indication of that. Now, there's other things going on in that game. I did not love, and I've said it a couple times, Brad Marchand getting benched for the overtime session when he's been an overtime hero his entire career. Losing in the shootout is always kind of crappy. It's just not a great way to lose in the NHL, but that's just the way it goes. All right. Question number 2. I will watch and back the Bruins to the end in this playoff scramble, but at this point, I won't object to any so-called shock trades for assets. Morgan Geekie stock is rising. Should they take advantage of that? Well, like I just said, I wouldn't trade Geekie. I would sign him. And there's no rush, I guess, because he's a restricted free agent. He's got arbitration rights. Like, it may come down to an arbitration or like setting an arbitration date before they get something done with him. But I don't think you trade him. I think you keep him, you hang on to him. I think you trade Trent Frederic. Like, that's the guy I would trade for assets. Even though the stock is in a different place right now. Frederic's stock is down, Geekie's is up. But I just think you hang on to him. I like the way he plays. I like the chemistry he has with Pasternak. He's big and strong and rugged. He hangs on to pucks. He's got a great shot. He seems to get better and better. Like, his numbers last year were career highs. He's going to set career highs, I think, again this year, as long as he continues to play the way that he's playing right now. And this comes after, like, he was poster boy for that terrible start that they had because he was just invisible for most of that first 20 games. So I just think you hang on to a player like that. I don't like, if somebody gets crazy and wants to give you a first round pick from Morgan Geekie, I would definitely think about it. Like a first round pick and a great prospect. If the offers came in and they were outstanding, I would think about it. But I just think Frederic, given his track record, given his pedigree, given where he is as a rental, makes much more sense to trade. And I think you're going to get pretty close to what you would get for Geekie, even with his stock up, as to what you're going to get for Trent Frederic, even where he is right now. Number 3, how do you feel about the penalty assessed to Justin Brazeau for goaltender interference against the New Jersey Devils? I hated it. He got tripped into the goalie. There's nothing he can do there. He's just going hard to the net, and he can't stop when obviously somebody gets their stick into your skates and trips you up. I feel like the penalty got called because there was a goalie injury. It was based on the result rather than the intent, and I always hate that too when referees do that. So I understand why it happened. I just don't think it's right. Number 4, if you had to vote today, who would get the Calder? This is a great question. I looked it up the other day, and I would have said Max Celebrini right off the hop without looking up the numbers. But I would say either Hudson in Montreal or Celebrini. So it's going to be a very BU kind of Calder trophy awarding this year. Which says a lot for BU that they have the top 2 guys, vying for the Rookie of the Year in the NHL after coming off the Terriers. But I think they've both been extremely good. You can't argue with the production for either one. I think Celebrini has been more of a dominant type player than people expected him to be. With San Jose. And I think he's been productive. He's generated a lot of shots. I think he's been a guy that's driven the line that he's on Very impressive. And him with Will Smith, obviously San Jose is headed in a good direction. But Hudson, I think, has gone into a pressure-filled place in Montreal where the expectations were high, where they need guys like Hudson to start performing. And they've surprised a little, and they've done better than expected. And I think Hudson's a big part of that. He's got, I think, close to 40 points. He's got 30-something assists, which is excellent. So I would say it's a two-man race, and we'll see what happens the second half of the year. As far as this is the second part of the question. I assume Spencer Carberry will get the Jack Adams, but who would be the other two finalists? Dean Evison with Columbus, definitely. I would say Berube with the Maple Leafs and the way that they've played and how he's kind of toughened them up. And they've been looking good lately. I would give him some consideration for sure. I think there's some other coaches out there that have done a really good job. But I think Spencer Carberry with the Capitals has been excellent. And I think he would be a guy that definitely will get a lot of consideration and should. All right, let's move on to the next question. Why does Bruins management hate young offensive-minded players? Days after saying we need to see what we have in-house and the kids languish in Providence. I am hoping Jones comes in and plays the way I thought he would when we signed him, though. That's from Kinchmo, and he's talking about Max Jones, who was called up prior to that game on Thursday night and did okay. Max Jones did okay. But before we answer that question, let's take another break to talk about Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime for obviously your Bruins tickets, but also if you're looking for tickets for the Patriots, Celtics, or even comedy or concert tickets as well. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. The game of the week for this week that would make an outstanding post-holiday buy is the Saturday, January 25th showdown matinee between the Bruins and the Avalanche at the Garden. The Super Saturday the super deal is $170 for Loge Floor 7 seats, which is pretty great value for Bruins tickets this new year. We love the features at Gametime. Priority Gametime picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All in pricing, you toggle this feature and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And my favorite, the lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. What's better than 110%? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right. So getting back into the question, why do the Bruins management hate young offensive-minded players? Do they hate Matt Poitras? Have they put him in a top 6 role with Brad Marchand and Charlie Coyle? Look, this isn't about the Bruins hating young offensive players. This is about the young offensive players not being ready for prime time, not being ready for a pressure situation, not being ready to play with a guy like Brad Marchand. Matt Poitras has done exactly what you need to do if you're a young offensive-minded Bruins player and you want to get up to the NHL and you want to get good looks in good spots. He shut his mouth, he worked hard, and he produced. And he dominated at the AHL level in Providence, and now he's back up in in Boston. And I don't think Matt Poitras is going back down to Providence ever again, based on the way that he's playing. And it was the perfect decision to send him down for a stint to boost his confidence, up his offensive mojo, get his mind right, back to where he's constantly looking to make plays. The motor is constantly going, and his confidence is high. And I think we've seen that from him since he came back. I think he's got a different mindset now, and I think he understands that he's good enough to create here. It doesn't mean it's going to happen every single game. That doesn't mean it's going to be, multi-point games all over the place. But he's in the mix every single game creating stuff. He's creating scoring chances. He had a bunch of setups last night. He's had chances to score. He's had shots on net. He's had a lot of time with the puck on his stick. He's much more noticeable transporting the puck up the ice and getting it through the neutral zone. I think he looks much more comfortable playing with Coyle and Marchand, and he looks much more willing to take the bull by the horns and be assertive playing with those kind of players. So I think it rings false when people are bitching about the way the Bruins are treating their young prospects when you see Matt Poitras, because he's done it the right way. He's shown he has the right stuff. And frankly, Mason Lowry, who has good games, makes mistakes, is having like the full first year, full season NHL rookie experience, where it's a roller coaster and it's ups and downs, and he's made some mistakes and he's had some good games, and he was pretty solid in the Thursday night win over the Senators. He's looked very good on the power play at the point. I think the power play's looked as good as it's looked all year since he's been there running the point, and I think it should stay that way. Had 5 block shots in that win over Ottawa, and played tough at times. And, was learning from other mistakes where he's like trying to make a quick play along the board, skating over the puck, turning pucks over, doing things where he's thinking offense rather than like making the safe, solid play to make sure the puck gets out of the zone. And he's going to learn. Like it's going to happen. But I think those are the players, because they've shown real NHL talent. That's why they're there as young guys. Fabian Lysell and Georgi Merkulov have looked borderline NHL talent when they've been up there. That's just the way it is. That's the truth. And they need to be better. And when they are better, they will get longer looks, and they just haven't deserved it right now. Guys like Patrick Brown, guys like Max Jones are a little more NHL caliber as far as bottom 6 NHL talent goes in a playoff level physical nasty game. Like, you can't drop guys like Merkulov and Lysell into games like Thursday night, put them on a 3rd or 4th line role, and expect them to survive and to thrive. It's just not going to happen in those kind of situations. They need to be used, if they're going to be used, in a top 6 kind of role where they're playing with skill players, where they're getting maybe some power play time, and where they're put in the best spot to succeed. And last night against Ottawa in the 3rd or 4th line, that's not a best spot to succeed. Matt Poitras has earned the looks that he's getting. He's earned the spot that he's in right now. And he is and should be the North Star for all of these other young players in Providence that want to get to the NHL, is doing it the way he did it. Dominating at the AHL level and leaving no doubt whatsoever that you are ready to be called up, that you are going to be productive when you get there, and that you are too good basically to continue to stay at the AHL level. And those guys just aren't there yet. And that's not on the Bruins. That's more on them. And that's something that they have to get done. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to just leave this one, and then we're going to go, because this is more of a comment than question. This is from Matty McGee. I'm not sure what else the Bruins brass needs to see here. They clearly aren't contenders. They aren't even scrappy, fun to watch losers. They play bad hockey and will only make the playoffs because another team stinks worse. What are they waiting for to blow this up? What hope are they clinging to? Lysell doesn't seem to be an answer to anything. The Lindholm contract is a disaster. Sorry, Elias Lindholm, but I kind of agree with that one. Swayman might be turning the tide, so that's good. So what else is there? We have a bunch of AHL All-Stars for prospects and overpaid third liners. Time to start over for Matty McGee. Not starting over, but retooling maybe in the future, especially if they continue to have losses like the one against New Jersey and the one against Ottawa last weekend. The win over the Senators on Thursday night, the 2-0 win, keeps you sort of hanging on for a little bit longer. But we will see where all of this goes. If it turns blow up time, it will be stunningly obvious. I just don't think we're there yet, because they show enough character and enough life not to do that. All right. Thanks everybody for listening this week. Let's thank our sponsors again real quick. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Let's also thank Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Everybody else out there, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week with a couple of episodes, guests for both episodes, but thank you for listening to this mailbag ep of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the